much. Well, hello! Welcome to the Binary Business Show. For those of you tuning in live, it is Friday at 3 o'clock, and this is my thinly veiled excuse to not want to do work on Friday. How about you?
Nothing better than a conversation about business with a friend. Like, yeah, it's a great way
Instead
to go
of
to the
doing
weekend.
business, we'll just talk about it.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Logan Edmond, CEO of Tabernacle Technology Solutions. I am joined by John Hanson, and John is getting ready to publish a book. I mean, what is it? Less than a month now, right? Like 3 weeks? 2
Yeah,
months, 3
November
weeks?
7th. Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and start off today with the big one. Tell us a little about your book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Winning Secrets, How a Dictionary and a Ruler Can Change Your Life is the name of the title.
Okay.
The subtitle, actually, I had Winning Secrets for, over a year. For years I had it, but I was really stuck with the subtitle. So I put a poll out on Facebook and said, hey, if you were going to read a book about winning at life, and here's some of the chapter headings, what would you do? And so out of those ideas, I kind of took some ideas and put them together, and that's where I stitched together, and I thought, I want to make a subtitle that kind of raises the question. And that's where I thought how a dictionary and a ruler can change your life is like, well, that raises the question. Well, how can a dictionary and a ruler change your life? So that's what I came up with the subtitle. The book launches on Amazon on November 7th.
Okay.
And then I'm working on planning a live event. Some of you have probably already seen lots of this on social media. That was going to be November 7th. I need to move that out to make sure I've got enough sponsors lined up and strong attendance so that it goes off well. So that is going to be in the spring, April sometime.
Okay.
But the book will still be available on November 7th on Amazon.
Awesome. I mean, people skills, no matter what industry. So just so you know, I think we talked about this. The premise of the show is how the areas of technology and business intersect in ways that everyone can relate to, right?
Yeah.
One of the key things that can make you the most successful person in the field of technology, good people and time management skills.
Oh,
It's counterintuitive, but honestly, the most successful tech professionals I've ever seen in my entire life, it's not their technical skills that took them where they're at.
Yeah.
They have the technical skills plus that extra secret sauce of they can work with people, they have good time management, they're their best person, and they actively work on themselves that way. And that's one of the things I tell a lot of people is if you want to be successful in tech, go network, go talk to people, learn how to have a conversation, learn how to be productive with your time. And the tech skills can always come later, but those skills, you can take those anywhere.
I know. So many jokes, right, about IT and how they like it.
There's some justified. Like I distinctly remember, and I may have not been that guy, so it was sorry, but like the guy that works in the office with all the Star Wars stuff, like in the corner, and doesn't come out. Yeah. That's not totally unjustified.
No, there's a comedy show in England about IT, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a small IT team, 2 people led by a woman that's never done IT, and she kind of just BS'd her way into the role of being the IT manager.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's stuck with it, but she's stuck with 2 guys that are just like super nerds, but it's so funny. Because the things that they make jokes about, well, that is the IT world. The interesting thing about what you said about people skills, I was super highly analytical. Accounting is what I thought I was going to do because I was good at numbers. I liked financial numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And it came naturally to me. Turns out I hated it. I don't want to be a bean counter. And then over the years, being married to my wife, becoming a father, and just being around some great people, I learned I really do enjoy people.
Yeah.
And by having that, I learned how to network in an effective way. Chris Borja has some excellent material on how to do that.
Hopefully Chris is
watching.
Hi, Chris.
Throw out to Chris there. He had some great stuff, so I just got into it. Believe it or not, I may have shared this with you or not, but in 2016, I had 0 connections. None. I had none on social media. I really didn't have any locally because up till then I had been in a corporate role where everything came to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a support role. I wasn't in sales. And when I got into sales, I'm like, I need to find out how I can leverage every tool available to me to have success in this space. So social media was one, in-person networking was another, working with vendors and partners was another, but all of those include people.
Yeah.
And it turned out that I enjoyed being around people, learning from people. So their stories are fascinating.
So this is my story for LinkedIn right now. The number one thing that increased my acceptance rates in terms of just wanting to reach out and meet new people on LinkedIn, because literally was the message says, I promise I won't spam your inbox with cold sales pitches. And I still do that to this day.
Right.
And you know what? That resonated people. Like, thank you. Like, I'm not just another face to you or another, like a target. You actually understand connecting with me as a person. And just people crave that actual genuine connection no matter what the platform is.
Yes.
And it is honestly, I believe the critical component of sales and business as a whole, because sales is the core heart of any business. But
Right.
you don't work with someone, you don't buy from someone, you don't do something unless there's a level of, I don't want to say trust, that's not always the case, but human interaction, right? You've built a rapport of some sort that you can lean into for that before it comes in. Like, barring certain things, like I guess I don't have a report from Netflix when I go and sign up for an account, right? Like there's a few exceptions.
I know what you mean.
But like business to business,
B2B for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. B2C could be more like a product or a trade, like, hey, I have some money, I want to buy this. More of a commodity type thing, right?
Sure.
But on B2B, oh, absolutely. It's about a connection of some form.
Yeah, you need a rapport.
Way.
You need a rapport. It's the same difference if you're in sales and you cold calling versus calling when you've already met the person.
Mm-hmm.
That you can feel that dynamic, right? That different dynamic. Cold calling is awkward. Even if you're really, there's people who are really good at it, right?
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of practice and sort of, I don't want to say conditioning, right? Like you have to have the right mindset to get through that training.
Yeah.
And but when you call someone, for example, and say, hey, I've met you at this thing, right?
Yeah.
The moment you have that point of connection, the entire dynamic of the conversation, the connection with the person, how they view you, how you view them, it just shifts. And that just by simply going to an event and shaking their hand at one time, that changes, that builds. All of a sudden, it might be thin, but you have that rapport. And that's, that was one of the things I think, just a little truth that seems so simple, but it's so massively important in any kind of venture, or any kind of anything in general. Like we run our relationships as humans. So,
how many people on LinkedIn, and a lot of you watching this can.
You're on LinkedIn. They're on LinkedIn right now. We're streaming.
You can testify the fact, and I get them every day. How many people connect to take a look at their profile? Okay, I will, but I'm probably going to get spammed. Sure enough, most of them have a pitch straight off, but then there's ones that, and I'm intentional about this too. When I connect, I share like a 2-sentence thing. What we have in common, mutual connection, something like that. I liked what I saw on your profile. Be honored to connect with you, and I use their first name, and then I send the connection, and I don't hit them up with something right off. I just let that. Another thing I do, I've done this for years, Logan, is I go in and I look at their skills, and if they've got they're very active on LinkedIn, they've been doing a lot, I endorse their top 2 skills.
Absolutely.
I'm like,
that's a great.
So many other people have endorsed them. Like I'm not.
Now I will say, if the endorsement, so I have skills on LinkedIn, but they're not the ones I'm using in the LinkedIn profile, and I'll randomly get this random person endorsing them, and I'm like, that's a little weird. Like I know there's an agenda here because that's not what I like. I think I have all these tech skills on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But if I go on LinkedIn, you're not seeing me talking about the tech skills beyond broadly, like talking about cyber risk. Most of the stuff I'm commenting on is like, hey, check out these cool things, or oh, that's really interesting, Mr. So-and-so, when they post something like that. Like I'm trying to engage with people. And so if you came to me and started endorsing my skills, that's the other option, right? There's no organic connection. There's no reason behind that. All of a sudden, what are you after here, buddy? I hate that we have to think that way, but that actually goes to show a point. In the world of automation, a disconnection, despite the fact we're more connected than ever, like that kind of disconnection that we don't actually want to have conversations, we want to minimize, we want to be efficient. It's kind of crazy. The thing that I think people crave most is that some form of genuine connection in that world of hyper communications, intelligent. That's just me. I get that I'm in tech, right? I'm in tech, and the number one thing people in tech crave, genuine connection.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that necessarily about tech, but
it's
good to hear.
Yeah, it is. Everything's based on relationships. So your book, obviously, we don't want to spoil the running. Give us a taste. Like, what's one of the key takeaways you feel like that you illustrate well in the book? Give us an example.
Yeah. So I'll give first the 3 big things that are the biggest teas. Then I'll give a couple of takeaways that are really powerful.
Okay.
In order, I believe most people are already winning in life, but if you have to use the right definition. You have to use the right ruler to measure it, and then you have to celebrate the right things. And I say that because I interviewed business leaders across Ohio. I had to limit it to Ohio, or I'd be interviewing the rest of my life because there's so many great stories out there. I limited it to Ohio, and I started sitting down with them and asking and trying to glean from their lives, what helped you be so highly successful? What helped you to win at life? And I discovered that some of the key elements, that a lot of them shared the same things. The biggest one that I found, if I had to go back and find that almost every single one had this, it was who did they surround themselves with? Who was regularly in their life? The relationships part you talked about, right? One of the chapters is who with and who without, or who with and who from. Who are you going to surround you with, and who are you going to get ideas and feedback and input and wisdom from? So who you have in your life that you're looking to, that you are building a relationship. We can only invest into relationships really to a handful. It's anywhere from 15 to 50 at the max. If you really think about the people you could interact with on a regular basis, it's going to be a small number.
Absolutely.
So who are those people in a small number? So if you feel kind of stuck in life, maybe just kind of take a quick inventory of the people you spend the most time with, and then say, maybe I should be adding more people that, like adding a mentor. I did that in 2019. Someone who's farther ahead in their career that is giving back, giving their time because someone invested into them.
Yeah.
And I approached them saying, I can see where you're at. I like the values you have. I'd love to learn from you so I can progress in business. And it was more of an exchange of, I want to learn from you, and I'm asking for a little bit of your time once a month. And it was such a helpful thing for me to help with mindset, help with belief. And then it was just a great sounding board to bounce something out.
Well, I think a lot of people, it's mentoring. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because that's a great, I think, segue. A lot of people don't realize this, that a mentorship is equally beneficial, if not more so for the mentor and the mentee.
Yes.
Like that, this is not a one-way street in a lot of
No.
cases. I am the kind of person, I think you might be too, where when I'm able to share knowledge with someone, who's starting one, maybe I have some experience in some areas that I can share, that actually helps me a lot, because then I get to see in that transmission of that knowledge and mentoring, oh man, there's some areas here that I'm not maybe as strong in as I like to think I am. This can be some, it brings areas that I can improve myself in. And it lifts up, the rising tide lifts all ships. It really is that way, a good mentorship, right?
Yes.
Like that's what I truly believe. Is that something you would agree with too? Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and we know that people want to give. People want to help. Mentors, it's a blessing for someone to reach out to them and say, I want to learn from you. I don't want your network. I don't want your money. I want to learn from you.
Oh, absolutely.
How refreshing is that for someone who's at a certain level of success, to have someone genuinely approach them and ask for only that.
So when I was first starting out, and I don't think he usually is on social media, but Kurt Heft over here in Columbus over Easy IT, shout out to those guys, they're cool. Kurt, I was starting out. I didn't know, this was, when did I start? Was this 2018, 2019? I didn't know a soul, right? Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was a great technician, but I never ran a business. Now, I had some backstory. My dad was an entrepreneur, and I kind of knew some of the stuff, but some stuff you can kind of absorb by osmosis, some stuff you can only learn, right?
Right.
Like
by
experiencing it yourself.
Or getting it from somebody else that will tell you.
And so Kurt that was one of the, actually, and I give him credit there, because he was one of the first people I saw, and Kurt was way beyond where I'm at now. I mean, Kurt was running this big operation at the time, like 35, 40 people working for him. Yeah. And Kurt took time to go to lunch with me, average about once a quarter, twice a year, and we would just chat and shoot. He still does to this day. Like I took him out to lunch about a few months ago, and just trade secrets, talk about how he does things, not looking at me like someone like, and this is what I feel like, someone who's any way inferior to me, like that. Just like, here's what I've learned, and share this with you. Yeah. And and once I started picking up my own pace, he actually was good. He still is good about letting me bounce ideas off him. Like that's been a thing, and I've always appreciated that. Like that's the kind of person that you would want to look for in any kind of mentorship.
Yeah, and the people with mentors that have an abundance mindset, the difference between abundance and scarcity being like, I got to protect my piece of the pie, and I want to get all the pie, which is impossible. But thinking like, I have the small slice that the abundance-minded people have. They're like, it's huge, and I would have to grow it a little bit more. I'd be so happy. So, and I want to help other people that also have similar values in how they do business. I want them to have a piece of the pie too. And there's so much opportunity out here. Helping them succeed isn't taking anything away from my slice. As a matter of fact, I want more and more people like this to get more and more of the pie, because then it means more of us that share values about how business should be done have more and more of the market. That's what we want.
I do genuinely believe that is absolutely so. Let's. Another thing, how do you feel about peer groups?
I say this.
How do you feel? We're talking about mentorship. How do you feel about peer groups? Let's start there.
I would say that you have to qualify like networking. There are so many groups out there now. I think it really depends on the, I'll call it the culture of that peer group. Because I've noticed cultures for networking groups and peer groups, they really have kind of a life of their own. They're kind of a microcosm.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you experience and take away from that, there are ones that are well run, that are healthy, that are positive, that are collaborative,
Mhm.
that are growing. And then there are others that for whatever reason, they aren't. And depending on what your experience is with them, just like people, peer groups and networking groups, they have a brand. What's their brand? What do you come away with?
I'm glad you said that because so I don't know if I've ever classified as a brand, but I like that.
Mm,
Like I always thought of like a theme in my head, but
Uh-huh.
maybe we're talking the same thing.
Sure.
This was the
sure.
running theme I've always seen. I've done a lot of peer groups. Actually, lead one now, so
Mm.
disclaimer. But one of the peer groups I've always seen, I always believe when I see a good one is the philosophy of servant leadership. We talk about a lot, where it's we're here to give to each other and
Yeah.
pour into each other, and there's an accountability element as well. Usually,
Mhm.
like, hey, what's our objective for each other and getting together and mentoring each other? What we need to hold you accountable in. For a business peer group, that's pretty easy, right? You set some goals for yourself? Are you actually staying true to your goals? Are you
Right.
doing stuff you should be doing? For a personal peer group, for example, like personal development, what areas of your life do you want to refine? Do you want to grow in? Are you actively working on those, right? Like someone who actually, with the spirit of kindness,
Sure.
willing to hold your feet to the fire a little bit. Those two things, servant leadership and that, are two things that I've always said. If they're not in a peer group, it's probably not going to be what you're looking for. Like that,
And similar to
that's fine.
networking groups that I've
Networking groups are the same, just a
Yes.
little bigger, just bigger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same idea. Yes. The spirit of it maybe is another word I would use. The spirit of the group, the theme of the group. You know, what's your impression of, and then as you spend more time with it, how do you feel when you spend time? Sometimes networking and peer groups, it can feel where it becomes like a trade. Like I give, so I should get something in return. And I think the ones that are well run and have a good spirit about them, it's truly like I'm here to give, I'm here to pour into others. I know I'll get something back. I don't know what,
Mhm.
but I'm not like trading something.
It's not
in
a
exchange
horse
for-
trade. It's
Right.
not a horse trade. It's an
Right.
intent of again. I like the saying, "Rising tide lifts all ships." Like
Yes.
you pour in because maybe you don't know how it's going to come back
No.
to you, but you pour in knowing that you're only benefiting yourself and those around you.
Yes.
You're not detracting. That's
Right.
the biggest thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And the idea of everybody succeeding together, and absolutely, I think that's what any group should be doing. And I apply that to culture internally for internal teams. One group that I follow in a company in Columbus, they have team bonuses. And where the sales team makes the most money is where the team is succeeding as a whole, not necessarily only certain people that are really skilled and really good and just cranking it out. Where they really can maximize their income is the team bonus.
Okay, I like that. That's a morale. That's a huge.
Isn't
morale. No.
Yeah.
Well, so context for our company, we
Mhm.
do things that we're not quite that big, so it's more of a group thing.
Yeah.
We have sales targets, and if we hit the sales targets, the whole team is rewarded. Like it's not just the people doing the sales, because the delivery, the execution, like
Right.
there's so many moving parts. It needs
Yes.
to be together. We're in this, and
Absolutely.
I think that's just a better, more structured
I
version of
agree.
that, and that's fantastic. Well, let me pause for just a second and kind of do a quick diversion. So, for those of you who don't know, we do free cyber strategy sessions at any given time. This show tends to talk about hopefully also a good blend of positive things like today, and then maybe some of the less positive but things we need to discuss about. We do cyber risk consultation as a company. So, if you were interested in looking at issues of cyber risk or taking evaluations for yourself, there's two ways you can do that. One is the QR code in the top. This one, hang on, camera's reversed that way. That QR code right there. That if you scan that, will go to our calendar, and you can take a complimentary free cyber strategy session with our team to chat about whatever's on your mind regarding the realm of cybersecurity and cyber risk management. If you're not ready for that yet, you don't have your time, or you're not sure you're really that interested, that's totally fine. What we've done instead is a do-it-yourself DIY risk quiz. The link is in the description of the video. Go ahead, take it, no obligation, no strings attached. Check it out. So turning the topic now to current events, and we always tread lightly in current events because it feels like, man, it's just a gut punch after gut punch the last few years, right? Like it does feel that way. And I try not to focus too much on it because obviously that can suck you down a spiral of
Sure.
there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear,
Yeah.
and we want, but it's also important to kind of talk about real life implications, like what's the real tangible things.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing right now is just a lot of uncertainty And in my space, just for your context, so did you hear, we talked about this a lot the last show, the whole MGM casinos being
Yes.
shut down. That thing was big news. And it just highlights the show. There is a lot of fear and uncertainty in the world, and there are people that are exploiting that right now. And honest truth is the data we're seeing, the more fear and uncertainty there is, the more that exploitation is rising. And it's a combination of things. Between COVID and work from home, of course, with everyone started working online, you have criminals who've commoditized a lot of the hacking element that used to be like, I don't know if you remember, you probably do. I grew up in a culture as a kid where the hackers was like hack the world. It was like a creative anarchy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It could be a little intense. Like some people didn't know what to do with it, but it wasn't nefarious on its own. Like it really wasn't. You're watching the movie Hackers.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's a cult classic. I love that movie. And that's what people think of. And so what we've been trying to educate people is, unfortunately, that culture, it still exists. It absolutely still exists, but it's not the mainstream culture for this stuff anymore. It is criminals looking at a commoditization of exploitation.
Yeah.
Time old truth, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When someone sees the way they can make easy money with
Yeah.
very little risk, they're
Yeah.
going to capitalize on it. And
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing right now. So MGM, just the latest example, that was, and of course this is allegedly, so let me asterisk this.
Okay.
Okay, because nothing's in court yet.
Yeah. Right.
I never say anything without allegedly
Okay.
until
okay.
it's a court file.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
But how that went down is, first off, the criminals themselves said, we were able to do this in 10 minutes. They advertised it took a 10-minute phone call to bring down a multi-billion-dollar company.
Wow.
So there's that.
Oh.
But who did the phone call? Because they were a Russian gang. And then someone figured this out. They partnered with teenagers on the online service Discord, is what the current scuttlebutt is, and said, we'll give you a cut if you're our call center, because American teenagers,
Sure.
no accent,
Right.
fluent English,
Yeah.
here's what you do.
Yeah.
And they treated it like a criminal crime. So basically a group of Russian hackers and a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds took down a multi-billion-dollar business in 10 minutes.
Wow.
And that's the thing we're paying now, is a lot of people are thinking, why would they want to come after me? Why would they want to do this? I'm not here to say, oh, be freaking out, be terrified. Like, this is not a FUD conversation.
No.
But the honest truth is those risks are going up. And so this past week, we have geopolitically looking at things. Obviously, the state of Israel, the Hamas, it's horrendous. Just there's terrible news coming out there. I tried to only look at it a little. But I don't know if you noticed this, there has been part of this. We're seeing, it looks like, either at the behest of Hamas, allegedly, or to them, a disinformation campaign. Criminals taking down key sources of materials, key websites, just trying to cause confusion. It's a vehicle for that now. Would you ever thought it could have been used in this, like, cybercrime? I'm thinking hackers. I think back then, we end up here. Like, look where we've come in the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's helpful that I've been with the company now for a year. I'll say my day job, but I love it, is with a company called Convergent.
Mhm.
And they're a global security integrator, and added, just last year, they added our
How
cyber
Convergent.
our cyber division is headed up by our former NSA director.
Oh, nice.
So I got to hear firsthand in a training in Nashville last year some cool stories from him. But we learned so many things that really opened my eyes to it's not just small, mid-sized companies. Unfortunately, this is rampant across all sizes of organizations where there isn't proactivity. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, I'll say, defaults, meaning that there are so many vulnerabilities that companies of all sizes have under their roof, simply because it's installed, that the assumption is that we're good to go. We've got a firewall, or we've got this, or we've got antivirus, or whatever. But what we're finding is that there's two stories, blow my mind, Logan. One was casino hacked into the network via a fish tank thermometer. Whatever's connected to the net, a major hospital taken down through a vending machine, whatever's connected to the net, and those devices that you wouldn't think about. Yeah, you'd think cameras, okay, that would kind of make sense, but it's peripheral devices way out on the edge that are identified. Well, this is an easy way. Rather than try to get hacked into the server, which is nearly impossible, let's find anything that's connected to the net and take advantage of that. And unfortunately, companies of all sizes, a lot of these devices that are installed are still on default passwords. So the things that you're talking about cyber, might sound like, oh, we can't afford this, that, or the other. A lot of it is proactivity. A lot of it is simple things that can be done with software on an automated basis. But if you don't have and non-obligation, free assessment of where do we stand?
Yeah.
You don't know where you stand.
Correct.
And most often, most companies do not stand in a good place. So it's not necessarily a fear thing. It's more of a peace of mind thing. It's more about you do a little bit of proactivity.
Mhm.
You are light years ahead of some Fortune 500 companies that aren't doing any proactivity at all.
And that's the, so let's pause there for a second, because you touched on something that's really good. The Fortune 500 companies. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people just assume
Yeah.
that they're the targets.
Oh, they
only.
got all the money.
And all the money. That's absolutely not true.
No.
50% of the U.S. economy
Yeah.
is small businesses,
Oh, yeah.
like myself and many others.
Mhm.
And the sad thing about small businesses, so statistically speaking, this is something we have to tell a lot of customers, because I think a lot of people know that companies get hacked and not a big deal. A few years later, things go on. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you're going to suffer for years because you got rich.
No.
You might, depending on who you are, but mostly you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But what they don't talk about, so let's use an example.
Mhm.
Equifax. Remember those guys? 2018
Yeah.
lost 1 in 2 American Social Security numbers. I was one of them. Were you? Did you get that notice?
No,
I got it in the
I
mail.
wasn't at the time.
I got it in the mail. Like, oh yeah, we lost your social. I'm like, I don't even like. They're a credit monitor. You can't opt out. You couldn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
They took a hit for about a year.
Yeah.
But because they were so big and they had so much cash in the bank, they were able to ride out that hit until short-term memory of the public moved on.
Yes.
Small businesses, if you took 20% of my revenue because I got into the news about something happened to me for a couple months,
Yeah.
I probably had to close up shop.
Yeah.
Like that's just that's the truth. And I'm talking about myself personally here, not talking about anyone here.
No.
This is me running a team. We have a team about 20 people now, give or take.
Mhm.
Yeah, like we would probably be done.
And depending on what industry you're in,
Yeah.
What if you're in insurance? What if you're in healthcare in any way? You're talking about personal health insurance information, private information, bank account, credit. You think about all the information that can be at risk. But something shocking I found out last year, Logan, to further support what you're saying, is that I discovered in Ohio that according to the SBA, 99.6% of businesses in Ohio are small, meaning 100 employees or less.
Yep.
So I thought, well, that seems shocking. Not that I don't trust the SBA, but I thought that seems incredibly low for how many are 101 employees or more. That's
We're what, the 7th largest economy in the nation too? So like that's
the national average is 95% of businesses in any state are small, 100 employees or less. And I know solopreneurs and mom and pops really pull that number down. But what my point is, 5% or less in Ohio, it's 0.4% of businesses have 101 employees or more. So yeah, there's a lot of dollars represented by that 0.4% of the Ohio economy. But what that means is there's a whole lot of small, mid-sized companies that are still great targets for smaller-minded criminals that are like, there's a lot more easy targets out there.
Yes.
If you think about it, like it's like in sales. Everybody's going after the big fish, after the whale. Okay. But there's a whole lot of other smaller fish that are easier to get into and still can have enough zeros where it's worth your time.
And I might add one thing, putting my tech hat on here, the world of automation has
Oh.
come a huge way.
Yes.
And you better
Yep.
believe, because we're using automation all the time.
Yep.
The criminals are too. And that's
Oh,
one of the
yes.
things people are asking, well, what changed those careers? Honestly, they figured out how to automate a lot of stuff.
Right.
Like there's actually, so it's funny. I tell people this, like don't get me wrong, there's tons of cool ways when we hack and stuff, but the majority of cyber breaches, 92% of them, of cyber attacks, you know what they start with?
No.
How they get in? The hook is an email. They're started 92.4% approximately phishing. You click a link in an email. That's all they do. So if they automate sending out the emails to get that hook in, that's a lot of targets. And they can just start checking, hey, who clicked the email? Who clicked the email? I don't know about you, but I'm going to be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
I have definitely clicked a phishing email or two in my time.
Sure.
And I definitely know better because everybody has a bad day.
Yeah,
You're
you're just
gonna-
not paying attention. You're busy. I've done it once or twice too.
It's like
Just in the past.
and that's all they need. And so that's when people in my industry say the attackers always have the advantage. I think that's what they mean, right? Like the attackers only have to be right once.
Right.
And someone like a valid business owner or a security professional, whoever, they gotta be right every single time. And that is really what's coming down. So to give you another illustration, I'll give you a personal story. I like stories. Can you tell?
Stories are good.
Stories are good.
Everybody connects to stories.
So this March, and I was fortunate we could talk about this now because we managed to afford it. There is a popular telephone app that is sold by technology firms to small businesses across the nation. It's huge. Mom and pop shops, bigger businesses, everyone uses it. It's a product called 3CX. It's that thing that runs your phone, you pick it up off the desk, talks, or if you have an app on your phone that you call on your office line, they're one of those guys.
Okay.
They were hacked by North Korea.
Oh.
And we actually had the pleasure. I was meeting, so I'm a security provider. We were meeting with our security operations team in Denver, Colorado when this went down. So I'm sitting at a table with an ex-NSA operative.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, let's take a look at this, right? And he starts diving in. And it was literally just as simple as they changed one line of text by hacking 3CX on all the software. Their target was a crypto exchange. They wanted to steal money.
Yeah, right.
Like, the government of North Korea targeted a private business by hacking another private business and going through a popular phone software. Like, and unfortunately, the world we see it's happening right now, there's a lot of instability. I don't like it. I don't think anybody likes it. I'm not happy about it. But I think a little bit, an ounce of prevention here, an ounce of being proactive about this stuff can go a long way to mitigating some of that risk. It's the same thing of I drive with my seat. I know I can get in a car accident. But if I'm being safe, I'm taking precautions, I'm driving my seatbelt, my car's got all these modern features, it's the same thing as if I'm driving like that versus if I'm driving with it under the influence, right? Like the risks are different here. One, I can't get away with, but I'm not too worried about. If I go out and I'm 3 times over the legal limit and start driving on the freeway, it's not going to probably end well for me, right? Like that's
insurance
the
the same way. How many people watching, and myself included, we have various forms of insurance, and you have that for when you hope you don't have to use it. So I'm paying for something that I hope I never have to use. But one great example is I paid homeowners insurance for years. I think we were in the house for 10 years, almost 10. I think it's 7 years we were in the house, and then a storm comes along and blows off half the roof of shingles. Well, for a deductible, they put on a Holden roof that's good for 10 years. If I didn't have the right coverage or that insurance at all, that would have been entirely out of my pocket.
So we've been comparing this, and I'm going to go industry deep a little because since you brought up insurance. So disclaimer, not an insurance professional. Definitely talk to a licensed agent in the areas of professional liability for the insurance. I'm going to table that topic for the right person. But from that area, a lot of the industry professionals from the risk side of things have looked at the cyber stuff and have just said, this is almost like hurricane insurance, like flood insurance down south. You know how that works, right?
Yes.
There's like 2 providers, and the only reason they can write the insurance is because the federal government backstops it, so they can never take beyond a certain amount of losses. Because it feels like it's a tsunami. The most successful carriers we're seeing are the ones that are saying, you can do a cyber policy, but you have to actually have security too.
Right.
They're not just going to write you a blank check.
There have to be some conditions to qualify for that.
And I don't want to go too in the weeds because, again, not as an insurance professional. I know some of our audience is insurance professionals, so I'm going to leave that to you guys to talk about the nitty-gritty details. But I think it goes to say I think the insurance conversation, while absolutely important in this topic, is the same thing as I said, I have car insurance, therefore I don't need to wear my seatbelt. That one does not equal the other.
Right.
I think right now that's what we're at, and I know I'm thinking, well, he's biased. This is what he does. I get it. Like I 100% own up to that, but I don't think that's wrong. So, what I would encourage people right now to do, and whether you work with us, someone else, I don't care. Start just thinking about this, about and learning what you don't know. We offer free resources for this on purpose, and I'll be honest, most people take our free resources don't end up becoming customers with us. I don't mind because I think at least the resources we give are good and they'll point you in the right direction. The quiz we were talking about today, great example of that. I promise we won't be offended if you decide not to work with us. Take the quiz. Seriously, it's super helpful.
Anytime you take a resource like that, it helps with awareness. You weren't aware of things that I had considered that to be a potential, not necessarily liability, but a potential exposure to liability. If I used to say this in interviews when I get asked the canned question, so what's your greatest weakness? And I would always say if I got that canned question, my canned answer was, well, what I don't know. Because what I don't know is my greatest weakness, which is why I'm always learning, always trying to figure out what don't I know. So if you're coming into with anything, just going with what your understanding is, not having done any form of assessment, where do we stand? Like any business that did that, then you're simply going with how you've always done it. It's always good to kind of evaluate where do you stand.
Well, no matter what we're talking about, not just cyber stuff, like
everything.
I bought my CPA. I would be lost when it comes time to make a budget. Like, what am I budgeting for exactly? Like, there's a reason for that. I need someone to kind of assess it and say, hey, you're looking good in these areas, your
Yes.
cash looks right. Okay, you can't afford to go and buy this fancy new thing or whatever. Like that,
Right.
that's needed before I make the decision to go, okay, I'm going to go buy the new building or the new car. Like I need to make sure I actually have the money, right? Like that.
Right.
That's a form of assessment. And by the way, I wanted to put a caveat on the can't question or anything. You know what I used to say to that?
What's that?
My greatest weakness was I like to talk too much. My greatest strength was I like to talk too much. I just gave him the same answer for both. It always threw them for a loop. It was fun.
You have to, for the canned answers, you should have, can't question, you should have canned answers.
So it's like, what's your greatest strength? I like to talk to people. What's your greatest weakness? I like to talk to people.
Well, at least it made the interview interesting. As opposed to the person just sweating bullets and like trying to come up
You
with
can tell
everything.
because the guy interviewing
Yeah.
stop, look up and you like first time he's actually really thinking like, oh, what did you just do there? Okay,
good.
well we're at about 36 minutes here, John. I'd like to take the last 5 minutes here. Let's talk a little bit about what you do. Obviously, so 7 ways. The book is the big start. Talk about 7 ways. What is the goal of 7 ways right now? Let's pivot conversation here.
So I started 7 Ways, an LLC years ago, 2020 actually, when I took it full time just before COVID hit, and I had to pivot.
That's all.
So now I know for a lot of people it was a curveball, wasn't it? And so I did a rebrand this year. A friend of mine recommended, you've got the LLC job, but everybody the things you do, like the business coaching, the speaking, the public speaking, and the writing, like they're buying you. You should have your own brand. I thought, well, at first I was a little resistant a little bit because I'm like, it feels a little bit like it's all about me.
Mhm.
And then I realized, I guess it kind of is, because everybody, when they pick up my book or they do business coaching or I speak or provide a workshop, they're hiring me.
Yeah.
And so 7 Ways is my company, and now I have a website. Somehow or other, John D. Hansen was not taken, so johndhansen.com is my website, and that's where it lists what I do. So I do public speaking, I do workshops. I've got my 2nd book is coming out in November. I've got a 3rd book planned for next year. My mission in life is to help entrepreneurial people and businesses achieve heroic success. While it sounds awfully lofty, when I studied heroism, I discovered that it's not so much what you do, but how you do it. And when I understood that heroism was simply the pursuit of excellence and a purpose beyond ourselves, I realized, so even though I have a military background, I served with people who didn't do it heroically.
Mhm.
I served with a lot of people who did. But then I also identified it's not limited to the military, to healthcare providers, to teachers and educators. No, it's open to anyone in how they do their work.
Awesome.
And so I can help people that are entrepreneurial, they're growth minded, thinking about how can I do this better.
You there's a really famous someone travels in circles. I've probably heard. Have you ever read anything by Mike Michalowicz?
Oh yes,
Great stuff. Great
Yes.
stuff. I'm
Yeah.
a huge. I stumbled onto him about a year ago, and
Oh.
I just ate through his stuff. And,
Yes.
and he has a saying that's very similar to that, which I think figuring out what the core of your mission is in anything is ideal.
Mhm.
It definitely sounds like you nailed yours because his is to eliminate entrepreneurial poverty, right? Like he wants to teach business owners how to actually run a business so that they're not trying to struggle to make ends meet every
Yes.
month. That's everything he does is based on that. For you to find heroic success and what that means, that sounds like that's how you are basing all your strategies, all your growth. It's all structured around what are we trying to achieve. Is that right?
Yes, it's like the 3-legged stool. We can help people always people first, inside and outside your organization. People, processes, not a dirty word. You actually, when you combine it with people, oh my gosh, it's rocket fuel. Like Chick-fil-A didn't get the size it was only because of systems, or only because of people. When they paired that,
The best business leaders in the world are the guys who do
winning recipe.
the best business leaders, and I will stand by the statement to the end of time in the world, are the people who, instead of doing everything, they're the one that figures out a process and empowers people to follow the process forward. Like that, and
Absolutely.
again, like a good CEO of a big company, I don't want him to be really doing a ton except the high level, because
Right.
his whole job is, okay, make a process, make sure it works, find the right people, put them together, let it go,
Yep.
right? Like that's how it is.
Processes and profitability, and I don't just mean financial. Profitability with your time. Is your
Oh my
time
gosh.
profitable? Are you getting a return? I see that as your greatest investment. And you talk about Mike Michalowicz. If you read any of his books, you're going to come away with some great.
Clockwork is that
One of my
one's-
favorite reads. Yes.
If you read Clockwork, I still haven't gotten so for those of you who aren't familiar with the book, the main premise of the book Clockwork is you should run your business in a way, if you're a business owner,
Mhm.
that you should be able to take a month of vacation off.
Yeah.
and it'll keep on running. If you can't do that, you're not done.
Yeah.
And that
You are the business.
you're still
Yeah,
the business.
it is
I'm set. I'm getting better. Like I think I can do about 2 weeks right now.
That's good.
But so the better it was, but
Yeah.
I'm still working towards that goal because that resonated with me. Like
Yeah.
I would like as an entrepreneur to have time with my family. Like entrepreneurs are some of the most hardworking people
Yes.
in the world. They really are.
Yes.
But there's a time and place for everything. In the beginning, I think it's good though. A lot of entrepreneurs hustle.
Yes.
But the end goal is as you grow and as you scale, that it's an investment. You're
Yep.
going to get that time back in spades because you invested it on the forefront, as opposed to a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday for the rest of your life. Like
Yes.
that's part of the I don't want to say it's the bargain, but it's part of the deal of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I think a good entrepreneur.
I think so too. And Michael Kalowich, another reason I liked his books was it was one of the few authors where I literally laughed out loud as I'm reading his book.
He's like he's got a bit of an interesting sense of humor, but I
Yes.
did enjoy it. So let me leave with this then. So at that point, your book coming out on November 7th that people can find on Amazon.
Yeah.
One more time, title of the book:
Winning Secrets: How a Dictionary and a Ruler Can Change Your Life.
Winning Secrets: How a Dictionary and a Ruler Can Change Your Life. And I just assume if I go on Amazon on November 7th and put that in the search engine, I'm going to find it. So
Winning Secrets,
I will
yeah.
go ahead.
You should.
Can you pre-order?
Not yet. I've got the proof set. I need to get an ebook version good.
Okay.
I just got the template and the proof back, and it looks good.
Okay.
So it's not quite ready yet. I might do pre-order a little bit before. I didn't do that with my last book, but I'm going to do that with this one. I haven't decided yet.
We didn't pre-order with ours either, but to be fair, for mine, I was able to output it pretty quickly thanks to a ghostwriter. So, not ghostwriter, a publisher. Sorry,
Sure.
wrong person.
Sure.
But so I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be reading it. John, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. You've been awesome.
Great conversation.
Great conversation, everyone. Again, my name is Logan Evans, CEO of Tabernacle Technology Solutions. John Hanson with 7 Ways. Thank you guys so much for your time. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we helped you procrastinate.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.